everybody. Welcome to this edition of HCS Matters. I'm John Wright, Director of Public Relations with Hardin County Schools. And we're with the instructional gurus of the district, a few of them anyway. There are lots of them. I think every teacher is probably an instructional guru, but we're with here some of our instructional leaders, Stacy Bronner, who's the Director of Curriculum Assessment for our elementary schools. Greg Sutton is our Chief Academic Officer, and then Ms. Carlina Sharon is our Director of Early Childhood Education. And state assessments, guys, are soon to come out, not too long. We're working on our district report card and our school report cards, plugging in those numbers here as we as time goes on. But state assessment always continues to change, right? And so let's talk about, I guess, first of all, why. I guess there's a new report card, a new school report card that will come out. And so why was there, Greg, a need for a new report card, a revamp of the report card?
Right. Well, obviously with our test scores, that's one data point each year. But with a school report card for those schools in the elementary schools and the middle school level that are on quarters, we're still going to send home a report card each quarter, or at the end of the trimester if you're a middle school or high school student that uses trimesters. And so basically when we started focusing on the elementary school report card, we realized it had been between 12 and 15 years probably since we've revised the elementary school report card. And I think the more parent-teacher conferences that teachers started to have, with the parents, they started getting more feedback on needed some more specific information. And it was kind of a perfect storm because when the state started to kind of revamp the Kentucky academic standards, it was kind of a time to sit here and say, what are some of those new skills and expectations maybe that are adjusted for each of those grade levels, more specifically at the elementary school. Hey, maybe this is just a time for us to update our school report card and make it better for our parents. So each 9 weeks when they get that report card, they understand why the students are performing where they are.
Right. And as you said, it had been a while since we had done that.
Too long.
Yeah.
Too long.
Yeah, why? I mean, we just...
Well, I think we get comfortable.
Yep.
I think we get comfortable with using some of the same academic performance levels. And I'll give you an example. We used to have one on our elementary report card that would say, making progress. Well, when a parent looks at that with a principal and say, what does that mean with my son or daughter making progress, toward the academic performance levels? And to me, that's not specific enough. So we had to sit here and say, how can we really tell a parent how your student's performing on grade level? And and we want things to match. When a student takes an iReady diagnostic 3 times a year, when a student takes the Kentucky Summative Assessment, and when the students do their report card, we want them to say, we know what skills they're deficient in, and we can explain to you why.
We do a lot of assessments in our district. We do the iReady, of course, the state assessment that we just talked about, and then we do the everyday, run-of-the-mill work. The work that we all know about. If I'm a parent, which I am, I should phrase it that way. Anyway, in being a parent, what should I look the hardest at, Greg, in knowing how my child is progressing through their academic career?
I always talk about the specific skills.
Yeah.
You look at a kindergarten, a first grader, second grader, we really break down the phonics continuum, the PA, phonemic awareness continuum. We can break it down by the specific skill of what the child can or cannot do. Of course, they're making progress. Yeah. So having that indicator, on a report card really doesn't make sense. We know every kid's growing and making progress, but we want to be very specific. Are they on grade level? And are you meeting each skill that lets us know that you've completed the standards at that grade level? And that's what we're going to be more specific with in our new report card process that really Stacy and Carlina did a super job going through that process for us.
Right, so when we decided to do this, I assume you look to these wonderful folks on your left and right and said, get it done. And knowing them, they did a great job with that. So
it was a very lengthy process, but we needed to take our time and do it right. It wasn't a 1 week or 1 month. It was probably I would say a year to year and a half process that we really put into this, Stacy, I'm assuming.
And you asked that question, why haven't we done this sooner? Well, once we got started, it was a lot of work.
Right. That may be why we hadn't done it sooner.
Yes, and it tells a lot of different avenues that you have to go into. You've got to get into your Infinite Campus program and be able to design that. You have to be able to hear from all stakeholders what they want to see in a report card. Right. So to do it right, it does take a long time, and that's what we did. Like Greg mentioned, it was a year-long process. We started last September, and kind of leads into our next area that we're going to.
So just go into some detail about that process.
So once we realized it's time, You know, we had heard from parents saying, you know, that's not really specific enough to tell me where my students are or my child is. Our standards had changed. We moved from a Common Core to the Kentucky Academic Standards. So I guess the stars were aligning and it was time. And so what we did was we first started, because we know that this is a communication piece to what our parents are finding out about how their kids are performing. So they are the number one priority of who we want to hear from. So we started with our parents. And so we sent out a survey to our parents to just get some feedback on how they feel about the report card. And so those surveys started coming back in, and then we surveyed our teachers. We started listening to our teachers to see. And so as we had this information coming in, we formed our committees. And our committees had a wide variety of stakeholders. We had parents on these committees, we had teachers, we had principals, we had district administrators. And then we did break it down by grade level. So we had sections. Here's a kindergarten group, here's the first grade group. And so what we did was we were listening to what our parents were saying, our teachers were saying, and so then we made a game plan. We were taking all this feedback to start building this report card. From the ground up.
From the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We didn't just tweak our old one. We built from ground up.
Right, and that is certainly a Herculean task.
Yes,
So,
and I will say that ground up, after getting that feedback, what we realized is the standards-based report card, which is our kindergarten to second grade report card, was the one that we were getting a lot of feedback on, that parents didn't like the format. They just said it was too vague. Making progress doesn't really tell me if my child is on grade level. Now, 3 through 5, the conventional report cards where you have math and it says 98A or whatever, parents love that. So we didn't change the format of the 3 through 5, but what we realized, the processes and practices needed to be vamped up. They need to be changed based on what we were hearing from our parents.
Right.
So the biggest change was our K2 report card.
Okay, so we'll talk.
Yeah, we're going to get in depth
get
about
into
that.
the meat and potatoes of that a little bit more here in just a second. But Carlene, what were parents saying when we gave some feedback, or when they had the opportunity to give feedback?
So I think that was probably some of the most exciting part of this work, is that parents were very involved and really did have a lot to say about what they wanted on a report card, which is so important because that is really the audience that the report card's designed for. So parents were saying that at the K2 level, they felt like the indicators that we were using were not enough to tell them if they were on grade level, and they really wanted something that would say my child is on grade level or my child is not on grade level, which is something that will be new for us, but something that was our teachers felt very strong about too, and I feel like will be a good thing. So we will still have standards that we will grade, and that will be, we'll use indicators for that, and then there will be an area in each of those sections where it will say yes or no, the child is on grade level. Parents also wanted to know how their children were doing all day long. So my child I hear about related arts, I hear about art, music, PE, but I want to know how are they doing in art, music, PE, and I would like for it to be reported to me in a way that resembles how they're doing in their regular classroom. They also shared that, and I think our parents love work ethic. They love that our students are working towards that, and we have this common goal. But the way we were reporting that, parents did not necessarily, that wasn't their first choice, so we've made some adjustments to that. Probably the K2 was the one that we had the most comments about wanting to see it change. But I think our parents felt very comfortable sharing with us too that on 3-5, they did not like that we had progress grades and 9 weeks grades, quarter grades. They just wanted it to be simple. They wanted to know at the quarter grade what my child has, and they want us to be able to share that information in a timely manner so they can get behind us and support us, that if we need a little extra work, we're going to provide it, and if we need to keep encouraging them to do great, we're going to keep encouraging that. So lots of great comments.
Right. And this is for anybody, a long time ago when I was in school, long time ago, I got an S or an S plus or an S minus or maybe a U for unsatisfactory. Why have we always done that? Why did I get a B in phonics when I was in first grade instead of a S? I mean, and that's the way it's always been.
Well, I think you get comfortable with something that you've always done. And
Right.
a lot of times when we give a kid a grade, she said a 98 is an A. Well, parents, when they were in school, like ourselves 30 years ago, that's what we got. So we understand that. When you tell somebody they're making progress, what does that mean? Now we can actually tell the parent, they can complete this skill independently. that is very specific. That means they can do that on their own without any support. Or they may be, as we changed on the report card, it could be developing with some assistance.
Right.
And it's more specific and well defined on that expectation. Then we can actually say, you're on grade level, you're off grade level.
Right.
Parents need to know that, because when they get their I-rated diagnostic score here in the fall and it says you're 1 grade level below, but if you made all A's on your report card,
Right. How
does that match up?
That doesn't G and Hall, right?
It doesn't match up.
Right.
So I think we, for the assessments we do give, for the skills we do expect for the kids to know, we want to make sure there's a match. So we're not confusing parents. And I think confusion is not a good thing when you're really wanting your student to be on grade level and be prepared for what they need to know for the next grade level.
Right.
Especially on the priority standards we've talked about this year.
Right. Carlina talked about those comments. So how did we move forward? I mean, did we compile all those comments up and said, okay, we need to do this? 20% said we need to do this. 60% said we need. How did that move? What was the strategy moving forward after that?
Well, basically, it was more of how many comments showed up how many times. It was like, what trends do we see?
Sure.
There may have been one comment on one survey that didn't show up on anybody else's. And if that was the case, that may have just been a concern of that parent. But the ones that showed up on multiple survey responses, which was more so about the format of the report card and the process that we go about reporting grades to the parents, those two things were just, prevalent and stuck out to us. So we knew, especially on the K-2 report card, there had to be a change. So definitely the trends and the consistency of responses. And plus, when they did a good job of actually having multiple meetings. When Stacy and Carlina are sitting in a room with teachers from across the district, with parents across our district, and they're talking about these survey responses, and they're actually narrowing down the key focus areas we need to have, that's what I think brought it home for us.
And did those, I know this is kind of a little off the cuff question, but did those teacher concerns kind of go along with what our parents were saying? Talk about that.
I think for the most part they did. Our parents, they were concerned about this, how specific, that clarity of how my students are doing. Well, teachers were saying that too, because what we realized too during that process, each of our, I don't want to say each of our elementary schools, but many of our elementary schools had a different primary report card. We found that out during this process, that one school's primary didn't look the same as another. So then we realized that maybe we were even using some older ones that were in a report card bank. So we had this process going on, and so we did have some schools that were reporting making progress, and then some were putting needs improvement. So we were in different places, but the teachers were having those same comments that they didn't feel that it was reporting clear enough how the students were, how they were performing in the classroom. And that's sometimes, the teachers know. The teachers know how well the student's doing or the struggles. But sometimes, if a parent's not sitting in that classroom, they don't see that. So they just felt that there needed to be more clarity. And that was one of the number one comments we were hearing from parents. Sometimes they said, we didn't realize how far behind our child was until they got to 4th grade where they started getting percentages. And so our teachers were like that too. They just felt that parents weren't being informed well enough with the way the report card indicators were designed. And behavior, our parents wanted to know how their kids were behaving. So we wanted to make sure that we were just touching base on all these facets that the parents were wanting to see. But again, they were pretty close to the same things the teachers were seeing.
But now as kids transfer from school to school, the report card will look the same.
Consistent.
Because it's confusing if I was at one school for the first 9 weeks, and I get these indicators, and I go to a different school the second 9 weeks, and the third 9 weeks. We're fairly transient at times, so that's confusing to us.
I was going to say that happens a lot in our district. Maybe somebody lives in the Creekside district and will end up in the Meadowview district, or Vine Grove to Lincoln Trail, or something like that. So that happens.
Now it's going to be consistent for them.
That's great. That's great. Carlina, which report card saw the greatest change?
K2 saw the greatest change, because K2 was the report card that didn't necessarily have an on-grade level or something that parents could equate to an A, B, C, D. So K2 also, we made a decision to break it down into various categories or sections for reading. So like in basic reading, like our decoding skills, fluency, comprehension. Math the same way. It was broken into calculation, math, reasoning, fluency, which is really a very, very good thing, because as a parent, I want to know how my child is doing in all of those areas. And if I just have one bullet that says reading, that's pretty vague for young children, especially when they're learning so many parts of that. So when we look down at our report card, our K2 report card now, it will have phonological awareness, and it'll list the standards for kindergarten especially that they would teach in a quarter,
Right.
and it'll give them a score on that, and then right above that will say whether they are on grade level or not. So, the one thing I think we want parents to realize is if they get a not on grade level, that's not an alarm that something horrible is going on. That is just simply it could simply be at this point in time, we got to work a little bit harder to get an on grade level next time. But it's really important that parents know that, because in the past, I think they have felt like there wasn't enough information in our
Sure.
report card to tell them that. We would, as a teacher, I think all of our teachers have had parents ask questions that resemble something like this. Does IN mean an A or a B?
Right.
Does S mean, is that a B? Could that be a C?
Right.
So I think parents are trying really hard to understand our report card and be able to help their children. And by making the changes we made to K2, by breaking it into these areas, it will be more clear as to what I need to help my child with.
Right, so that was, will parents still need some sort of, will there be something in there that explains what I'm looking at, or is it going to be self-explanatory enough for me not to have to go to the dictionary to look up what?
Well, on our
That's
report
the-
card, it still has the standards that are listed.
Awesome.
So let's take math. Math has a calculation area. So the standards in which the teacher has to teach are listed there.
Okay.
So the indicators score it. So based on the average of what these indicators are saying, the teacher will make the decision to say, okay, John, you are on grade level in calculation. And John, you may be fine calculating, but math reasoning, the story problems, the math problems, you may struggle on those. So
Which I
the
did.
teacher can see, the parent can see, a guardian can see that how they scored in those standards, which are broken down specifically. But then they can see the overall, yes, are they on grade level here, or are they not on grade level? Again, because we know, we just don't want to say math, yes or no, you're on grade level, because we know, again, at the early grade levels, there are a lot of different ways to look at it. And we want to be very specific on what sections, if maybe there is a struggle, where is that struggle at? So parents do know how to help their students.
Right, right.
And John, I will say, for elementary, one of the things that parents need to really probably be aware of, and most very much are, they really get an indication of how their children are doing every single week
Sure.
in their folders. Elementary schools send work home every single week that gives parents an idea of how children are doing. So I think we had a lot of parents at the elementary level, especially like the K2 level, who weren't feeling like they didn't have an idea of how their child was doing as much as they wanted to know, show me if it's on grade level or not. So, one of the most important things that a parent can do is look at what schools are sending home to them and talk to their children about, what did you do here in class? What, and talk about those problems they get right and those things that maybe they didn't understand as well. And I do think, our teachers in Hardin County are absolutely fabulous at communicating with families, and they
So I was
work
gonna ask,
really
right.
hard, to communicate all the way along, not just at the end of the 9 weeks. So they're communicating day one, how your child did on this and how your child did on that. And a great partnership is when you take that information you get from the teacher and then you're talking with your child about it, and you're working a little bit every night with your child.
Right, and our teachers, you hit the word on the head, fabulous. I think they're seeking that communication. They would love to get that email or that phone call from Mrs. Bronner about how Junior Bronner, and there isn't a Junior Bronner, but you know what I'm saying. They would love to hear that phone call, get that phone call about how Junior's doing
Right.
in his or her class.
Absolutely. Because the collaboration between parents and school is the best thing that can happen for your child. And that's all of us want, is for our students to be successful and to be able to move from, A to B and feel confident and success, and to go out into life and be successful.
Right, absolutely. So K2, Stacy went through that major change. So what happened with 3.5? Did it change at all?
Well, again, parents like that format. I think that's what they were used to seeing when they were in school, so we didn't get a lot of any kind of negative feedback on that format. But some of our practices and processes that we had in place, there were some comments about ways for us to improve that, and so we listened to our parents. And so some of the areas, and during this time period, Carlene and I have been out in our schools rolling out the new report cards so that our teachers understand the process. And so what we've done is we've also, with 3 through 5, we've met with those teachers saying, listen, your format's not changed, but some of the processes and practices have. And so the committee for the 3 through 5 just set recommendations for us to roll out to the schools to say, this is how we can better improve a process, what our parents are wanting. And so some of those areas, behaviors, they just said, we want to know how our kids are doing. So in Infinite Campus for a conventional report card, it's very difficult to get in there unless you have a course set up. So the committee just advised the schools, make sure you have something in place at the school level,
quote unquote course,
that you're informing parents on how students are behaving. So we just rolled that out to them and let them at the school level decide on what that's going to look like. Again, I think Carlina mentioned some of our parents they felt the report card was too busy, the 3 through 5 report card was too busy putting progress grades and the quarter grade on there. It was just hard to read. So that was a quick fix. So hopefully that when these report cards roll out, they're only going to see the quarter grades. Okay. Work ethic. Well, I think we've already mentioned work ethic. It was very confusing to see a 1 or a 0. What does that mean? So we changed the indicators. So now you're going to see a satisfactory or needs improvement in that area. There's also going to be a blurb. From what I understand, Ms. Slavin created a blurb that will be printed out. We've had a letter created so schools could send that home to explain that process. The other area was our grades that we enter Infinite Campus. Parents just want to have the courtesy to see grades happening in a timely fashion. They just didn't want them all put in right before the report card comes home. So what the committee did is they pushed out a recommendation of putting grades in bi-weekly in Infinite Campus so that parents can monitor the progress of the grades, because we know sometimes those D's and F's might not make it home. You may not see that activity that came home with that grade. So at least parents
accusing our students of hiding that bad
that
grade.
one just conveniently might have ended up on the trash can on the way out, but you never know. So we just want to give parents the courtesy of seeing those types of grades too. So if you check your Infinite Campus grades, the teachers should be putting those in bi-weekly.
Is that a big change for a student, for a parent to leave that 2nd or 3rd grade, for their child to leave that 2nd or 3rd grade, and then all of a sudden, hey, I've got to log into Infinite Campus now, and that's where is that a big jump for folks?
I think we have parents in K2 that are still going in Infinite Campus because they check attendance. There's other things that they can still do in there. And I think we do a good job getting parents to get into that parent portal so that they can see this information. And once they realize the wonderful aspects of this program, I think we got parents that are in there all the time.
Right. I mean, you can get Infinite Campus. I mean, I get our daughter's grades on our
and it will also notify you. You get a ding as a grade's being put in.
When a grade's being put in, the teachers at my children's school sometimes grade papers at the craziest times because that's when those grades are going in. So that's good to know. That just proves they're always working. So.
And one of the last things that was on our rollout was specific comments. If a child, if a child's going to get a D or an F, get in your comments and let the parent know what was causing that. Was it missing assignment? Was it lack of effort? So those teachers will just be putting a comment in there to explain what may be causing that D or F grade.
So, and I guess that kind of goes along with that. What teachers determine which indicators provided for each standard on the report card?
So you're talking about the K2 report card? After we got the report card finished, we created some more committees. And those were our report card scoring criteria committees.
Okay.
So what we did is we looked at all the standards that were on these report cards, and teachers built guides for the teachers to use to know how to score those. So, Carlina was talking about phonics and PA and things like that. There's so many skills per grade level that we teach. And so we just created ranges. So if your child's doing this many to this many, this is how you would score that. And so we've just got it in black and white. Instead of it being gray now on how we score kids based on, maybe it could be our opinion on things, we've got it cut out so that every teacher in this district of Hardin County Schools has a scoring guide, and so they are looking at that criteria.
More clear of a rubric, so to speak, to use the teaching vernacular. You touched on work ethic, and we've heard of the work ethic certification program at the high school level, but I know Lisa Slavin has done a great job of getting that organized at the middle schools, and then she jumped down to the elementaries, and you guys are kind of just throwing wood on that fire, so to speak, with it's now a grade. I mean, or it's now or measured.
It's reported.
Yeah, it's reported now. So
yes, we started rolling out the standards. We focus one a month, and it's usually based on, like September, attendance and tardiness is super important. So we started with that standard. And so each month there's a standard in which, that we're teaching, whether it's in the classroom or the guidance counselors going in and doing lessons. But we are rolling out what is work ethic and what does it look like, and so that we're starting at an early age because we know how important those skills are.
Those grade 8 standards, we want them to know, because they're not just needed in the senior year of high school, they're needed all through their academic career. So Greg, what should parents expect, or when should parents expect to see this report card?
Well, obviously here at the end of the first 9 weeks, and we're, which I guess what's the final day of the first 9 weeks here?
I
Probably
think
right after
October
fall
21st.
break, October 21st, right after fall break, they should be expecting the first report card home, and we hope that's going to lead to some good discussion, some good positive parent-teacher conferences. I know something that some of the elementary school principals have been asking for is on the PL days in the future to be able to have some parent conferencing time, and so they can have some beneficial conferences. But the biggest thing everybody needs to know is that at the end of the year, anytime you do a new process, you need feedback.
Yes.
And this is not a one-and-done thing. We surveyed parents last year, and obviously the teachers, when we started, at the end of this school year, we're going to do it again.
Right.
Just to kind of get a temperature check on where are we at, are the changes helpful to you, and do you have a better understanding of where your child's performing. So I'm kind of anxious to see how this goes this year and the feedback that we get at the end of the year.
Right, and just reinforce, Greg, this is not just something that you and Carlene and Stacy started on back in August, here, as we sit here near the end of September. I mean, this is something that's been on your plate for a while, on your all's plates for a while.
I want to thank all the teachers because there was multiple meetings last year after school at the Board of Education, the boardroom, with Carlene and Stacy leading that process and giving their feedback, going through survey results, going through the report card, making the changes, making adjustments, coming back with those adjustments, doing a second read, then a third read, and those parents that took their time to be on the committee as well. I can't thank them enough. When you talk about something you haven't changed in 12 to 15 years, it's not something you take lightly. It's,
Right.
it's very important.
Talk about important, and we talked about state assessments at the beginning. This is important. What we're talking about here, daily report card stuff.
Yes.
State assessment is one moment in time, and what we see here is the meat and potatoes of what we do.
That's great. The report card, the I-ready diagnostic 3 times a year.
Yes.
That's what we put our emphasis on the most.
Right. So when you see those test scores, state assessments, those are all well and good. It's
kind of like Michael Jordan going out one day shooting 0 for 10 one game.
right.
That's
That's a
one
good way
game,
to put it.
but over a 12-year career, he averaged 32 points a game.
Right.
And you're going to have that
Probably
one
the
moment in
best player
time
in the game.
where
Right.
maybe you don't perform the way you want to, but over time, your statistics are going to be pretty good. So.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a great instructional team, not just sitting here, but there's several more, not only at central office, but across this district, whether that be in the classroom, whether that be teachers or assistant principals or principals in the buildings, instructional assistants. There are so many people who help students learn, and gosh, it also goes down to bus drivers and child nutrition workers and all those folks who help our students have a better school experience, and it's all found right here in the Hardin County Schools. For more information, go to hardin.kyschools.us about our district. If you need more information about what we just talked about today, you can find all these folks' email on our website, and you can also talk to your teacher, your child's teacher, about what you see on that new report card. So thank you all for watching this edition of HCS Matters.